Hi again. So this time we're going to do the filled donuts. I've already made the donuts in previous video, but they were just the ring donuts. So this time we're going to do round donuts and we're going to fill them. A bit of a different process, but really not that much. So this time I'll be using fresh yeast. On the recipe I've got fast acting yeast. So what I've done on the recipe, I've just altered it by putting the different variation with the fresh yeast, and believe me, they work 10 times better with fresh yeast if you can get hold of it. It's not one of those things that is sort of readily available, but sometimes if you go to your supermarket and ask for a piece of fresh yeast, sometimes, or more often than not, they will oblige and give you a little chunk. So it's always worth going up to your local or bakery, and if they're open, and asking if they can get fresh yeast, or they can buy it in for you. So it's up to you. Although it usually comes in a kilo block, so you have to sort of use it up, or you can freeze it, but unfortunately it doesn't come out as well. The freezer doesn't work as well, but you can sort of up your quantities to sort of counter for that. Okay, so let's get on with it. Right, to start with, so what I've got, I'll go through the ingredients first. I've got milk here, and that is warm. That's around, just under or I'd say blood temperature. And that's important so I can start sorting my yeast out with a bit of flour. I'll go through that bit. I've got sugar. Here, the last one I made, I used normal butter. But this time I'm going to use the Flora buttery, because I find, especially with things like this, that it's better for the aeration of the cake. I find butter quite heavy, so this one's quite light, a margarine, and the same if I put it in sponges, I find it a lot better to work with. One, because it's soft anyway, so it goes into your mixture as well, but it just creates a lighter batter or dough. I've got salt, I've got my fresh yeast in here, and I've also got my flour, so strong bread flour for this one, and it's sieved. Okay, so what I will do is I'll put my salt into here, into my flour, because I don't want to put it near my yeast yet, because obviously the salt's going to kill my yeast. I'm just going to give it a little move around so it's all sort of dispersed into the flour, and I'll do that. And then what else I will do, just to start off, I'm going to, with my warm milk and my yeast. Right, so if you're using dried yeast, it's two sachets of dried yeast, so that's 14 grams of dried yeast, but that goes straight into your flour. So there's no need to, especially if it's fast acting, it has to be fast acting. If you're using a more bulkier yeast, it's best to start it off like what I'm going to do now, just to sort of aerate it, or start it living. Okay, so what I'm going to do is a little bit of milk, just to cover. I'm going to do a pinch of flour from my mix. Only a pinch, and a little bit, tiny bit of the sugar as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mix that up until until there's basically no yeast left. And this will activate the yeast. It won't take long to activate because we're using a warm milk, and the sugar, it will feed off the sugar in the flour. And believe me, it works quickly. So once this is done and I've dispersed the yeast, we'll get on to cooking it. Okay, so my yeast is starting to froth. That means it's activated and it's ready to go, ready to rumble. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put my sugar in. Right, so obviously I'm going to use a KitchenAid. This can be all done by hand. At this stage, where when you add in your milk, you put all your flour out onto your bench and make a well in the middle, and then you add your sugar, your yeast, and a bit of your milk, not all of it straight away, and sort of start blending it in, adding a bit of the milk at the time, just so you don't get milk all down your side or all over yourself and it just looks like a mess. And you just keep kneading it, and you'll keep kneading it until you can stretch your dough, and it becomes nice and stretchy, and also it'll be smooth to the touch, but we'll go through that bit. This is just obviously a quicker way, and we want to do as quick as possible. Okay, so the sugar is in. I'm now putting my yeast in. That's all the yeast. At this point I'm going to put the hook down, and I'm going to start slowly moving it. I'm going to add my milk. Not all of it straight away, because again, depending on the flour you use and how absorbent it is, you might not need all the milk, or you may need a little bit more. But so remember, just try not to put it all in straight away. So the butter part, once this is all incorporated and once it's come to a dough, then I'm going to add my butter. So you would do the same if you was kneading it. Before, when you got it to a nice stage, then you'll sort of incorporate your butter. So at this point, I'm going to add my butter. Let me just stop it. There goes my butter. So this is a nice enriched dough. And I'll just turn up the speed a little bit. Okay. And that will just slowly get incorporated, and I won't leave it, I'd leave it in there until all the butter has disappeared and it's come to a nice dough, and then I'm going to finish it off by hand. Okay, so it's been mixing for about 5 to 6 minutes, and it's nice and stretchy, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish it off with a bit of flour. You can be slightly heavy-handed with the flour this time, because it's quite a wet dough. So we're just going to scrape all that out onto here. This is a nice messy bit. But what it should feel like is quite soft. When you tap it, it shouldn't come away, onto your fingers. Your fingers should stay dry. That's what you're kind of looking for, but a nice soft mix. Okay, get all of that out. Okay, right, so I'm just going to also start kneading it like I do the bread. Okay, make sure you've got a bowl nearby, because we're going to prove it after as well, just like we do bread. So you'll find when you add the butter that it will change consistency, and it becomes a little bit more smoother and silkier, which is nice and just how we like it. Okay, so I'm just going to stretch the gluten. This time we're not going to work it as much as we do bread, because a lot of the work again has been done in the mixer, but this is what you're looking for if you're going to hand do it. It will come together. It might feel a bit funny at first and a bit wet, but it will definitely come together. I'm just going to use all the flour that I've got on the bench, and incorporate it, waste not and all that. Okay. Okay, let's get that in there. Everyone has different ways of kneading. I'm not one of these types that say you have to do it this way, but again, as long as you stretch your gluten and work with it, it should be fine. Okay, so at that point, it's good. So yeah, so now I'm just going to shape it. Just going to sort of move it over, fold it over, and then I'm going to fold it over again. Okay. If you work kind of fast so it doesn't stick to the bench and your fingers, okay? So that now I'm going to put into my into my bowl to prove. And these will make for super light donuts, honestly. Try not to dry out your mix or add too much flour, because if it does dry out, you'll get a tighter donut. Some people like tight donuts. Anyway, so yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover that. And with a little bit of cling film, like this. And we'll just leave that there to prove. So that will take what, maybe 20 to 30 minutes to prove up, and we're going to it's double in size we're looking for. I'll have a quick clean down and I'll be back to you in a minute. Well, half an hour. Okay, I've had a chance to have a coffee while this was proving, which is nice, and as you can see it's doubled in size quite well, and it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Also what I've done is here I've just put 2 bits of parchment papers on 2 baking trays. We're going to obviously roll out and then cut them and then put them into here. So what I've got is, I think I've got a 2.5 inch cutter. It's up to you what size you do them, but obviously you're going to have to fry them later. And you know, I want to put maybe four into the frying pan. Not frying pan, deep fat fryer. So you will need a deep fat fryer, or you will need at least 2 litres of oil in a large pan, so you can cook them. And we'll be cooking them at 180. Because they do lose, you know, the fat does lose heat. Once you drop them in, they'll cool down, and it's just a slower bake. So as long as you keep your eye on them, keep turning them, and we'll go through that process in a minute when we go to bake. Right, so what we're going to do with this, I'm going to just dust my work surface. Thus, I'm going to ease this out of here. Again, there we go. I'm just going to turn that over as well. There you go. And just try and get some flour between your board and your mix, because when you're rolling it out, see, I'm not going to knock it back at this stage, I'm just going to roll it. I find if I knock it back too much, I don't get such an aerated donut. So I want it to be nice and fluffy, which it's going to be. So yeah, a bit more flour on the bottom, flour on the top, and we're just going to roll. Because as you roll, obviously you're going to knock the air out. Okay, so you see that didn't take much. So around then, make sure it's nice and even. Again, this will rise again when it goes for the second rise, or the second prove. It will be quite fast. So just keep your eye on it. What I'll do here as well, I'm just going to dip my ring into the flour so it doesn't stick, and then cut away, lift up, and then place onto my tray. Cut maybe just enough for 2, and then dip again. So I dip into my flour and then cut. Okay, it's as easy as that. So we have excess dough. What I do, you can just fry those bits off. You just put them on another tray, and they make for nice snacks. Or what you can do is you can roll it up, and you can prove it again, and then, you know, either make mini donuts or a couple of more extra donuts. You know, it's totally up to you. But yeah, we tend not to waste it. Okay, so you're looking like that. Okay, nicely spaced apart. They're not going to sort of prove and then blend into each other, they'll prove upwards. So we will leave that for roughly 10 to 15 minutes, let them prove up nicely, and you'll see some nice aeration when they start proving up. And then we'll set up the deep fat fryer, and then we'll go for the fry bit. So before we go to fry, make sure you've got your cinnamon sugar ready. Can you see that? Yep, cinnamon sugar. So usually I've got what, maybe 300 grams or 200 grams of sugar. and a heaped teaspoon of cinnamon. And that's what we'll use to toss our donuts in. And I shall show you a little method what I do. It's always best to have it in a bowl rather than having it in something square, and there's a reason for that. But I shall show you when we go to dip. Again, also my donuts, I won't be covering them this time. I'm just going to let them prove as they are. Because what you'll find is sometimes if you put a little bit of cling film over there, once they've proved it and you go to pull it off, it can sometimes stick to the donut, and then you have a bit of a misshape. Okay, so they have proved. They've proved nicely. You kind of a bit of a race though, so we want to get them in and get them cooking. But I'm going to do a test one first. Just have a look. At this stage they're quite delicate, so we just drop one in. And again, you know, once it starts heating up, the air in the side will expand, and it's just a game of sort of moving them around on a continuous. Don't wait. You don't have to wait till it goes brown on one side if you want a nice even cook. I tend to just keep turning them. If you can see that, yep, good. When we go to the next ones, I'll just zoom in a little bit so it's a bit easier to see them. As you can see, it's puffing up nicely, and they'll brown quite quickly because this is a good bit. So, and then what I'll do is I'll transfer this onto some paper towel. Just to soak up the excess fat. Before they cool down, I'm going to toss them in my sugar. Okay, make sure you're using a holy spoon, yeah? The holy spoon. And you can see it's starting to brown quite nicely. Right, so as you can see, it's browning beautiful. What you don't want to do is you can be deceived by the colour. It's quite dark around the sides, but when you take it out, the colour will deepen slightly. It looks like it's a bit pale, but honestly, believe me, once you take them out, and what you're looking for is for the bubbles to really slow down. They're not going to stop completely because obviously there's still sort of air in there, and the air is trying to escape. So this is very, very close to coming out. See, I don't like burnt donuts. Nothing worse. So yeah. So just be careful. So it's very close. I mean, it looks pale on top, but honestly, it does darken, as you'll see when I go to take them out. Okay, this is the one I'm going to remove now. Just make sure you get as much oil off before you put them onto your paper. I'm just going to move the camera so you can see what's happening. We'll remove this slightly, pardon my camera. We'll just do one donut at a time. Well, we won't do, I'm just going to show you this. Okay, so here we are, Mr. Donut. And I'm just going to turn him over like that, just to get all the excess oil off, because you don't want to then put it into your sugar and it be totally and utterly covered in oil. You want a nice crisp donut. Right, so that's good. I can touch that. Still a bit hot, but there you go. Right, so I'm going to put it into my sugar, and rather than touching it all the time, I'm just going to toss it in the sugar, like so. And that is basically your donut finished. And before we inject, of course. You see that? Not very good with the old camera. So you can zoom right in. Wow, look at that. That's a proper donut. That is beautiful, okay? That's what you're looking for. Nice and round and delicious. So, and what we're going to do, we're going to then wait for that to cool down before we inject it, because if you inject it while it's hot, what happens is the liquid inside gets hot and it just oozes back out. So, and we don't want, we're trying to keep it inside. So we cool it down so it's warm, but not cold. because if you wait till it's cold, then it makes it harder again for it to eject in, because it won't, you know, it won't collapse inside. What you're trying to do. So yeah, there is a tricky bit to this, but we'll go through that as after I cook the rest off. See you in a minute. So I'm just going to show you the last 3 that I cook in. So when you put in 3, these have proved quite a lot. So very gentle as I'm handling them. So try not to misshape them when they go into the fryer. And I'm just going to let them in for a little bit just to get the skin on the bottom, because sometimes what can happen is you create a massive air bubble, and that will prevent you from sort of turning them round. So we don't want to create that air bubble. So just for the start, we'll keep turning them so we get a nice even shape. If they want to turn, like this one. There you go. So yeah, there is a sort of sense of urgency as you go down to your sort of final few donuts, as they will keep on proving. But that's fine. You just got to be on top of it. You know, it makes around 20 donuts, probably a bit more if you re-roll and cut out, or if you just want to use the bits for crunchy donut pieces. So as you see, I just keep turning them, and as they once they stop growing, then you can kind of just leave them a little bit longer on each side to get the colour onto them. I mean, you know, it all depends on the size of your fryer as well. So this is quite a large double fryer, so it can hold a lot more. If you've only got a small fryer or a pan, you're probably better off just doing the 2 at a time. Or if you're brave enough, you do the 3. Okay, so they're all coated, they're all fried. Some of them, unfortunately, ended up in my belly, but that's just because they're so bloody nice. Anyway, so if I can get you a close up of that without distorting, there you go. So that's what you should end up with before we sort of pipe in. And I've allowed these ones to cool. So this is the first plate that I did, but obviously we've got quite a few, and I will distribute them out later. So let's just focus again. Pardon me, excuse me, sorry. Right, so what you're going to need is you're going to need one of these, which is a injection nozzle. You get them from Amazon or anywhere. You just look for injection nozzles. And they come in different sizes, so I've got quite a thin one here, which will help because the caramel is quite soft and runny. You don't want it to sort of do a big nozzle and then it will piss back out, pardon my French. So all that I've done is push that through the piping bag. I haven't cut the piping bag, just literally, so it gives it a better seal. Twist the nozzle, push some of the bag in there, and then I'm going to put it into here. And just, so, you know, I can then free to pour in without it spilling everywhere. Right, so also here, if I swap that over, I made some caramel. And I made this caramel a few days ago, because we just like caramel, and, you know, Lucas and just loves to drink it. So yeah, there we go. What I'll do is then, this is a salted caramel, just make sure it's all good and moving. So yeah, I'll pour that into there. Oh, look at that. Tasty as. Wipe off. Yum. Set that aside. Sorry, I'm just making sure that you can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to hopefully seal up my bag. So I twist that because you don't want it to sort of run out. I'm not going to open it just yet. I can move that out of the way. Right, so this is the easy bit. And what I'll do is, I'm just going to open the bag. I'm just going to push them through just to get it started, just to make sure it's not blocked, which it's not, because the last ones we did, we put chocolate through it, and obviously the chocolate solidified inside, and yeah, made quite a mess. Right, so, and then you get your donut basically, and you just inject it. So I'm just going to push it in to the centre of your donut, and then I'm just going to fill in there. Okay, I think that's enough, and then I'm going to pull it back out. Some of it will come back out, as you can see, but not a lot. So that's what you want to do, and you want to do that to all of them. I'm just going to quickly, and you can just wipe that bit off. That. Oh my god, they're good. Okay, so I'm going to do another one, just so you can see. Just make sure your bag's always tight, as tight as possible, because you don't want to have a weak bag. So yeah, inject into the middle and pipe in. You put as much as you want in really, but and then you'll feel it'll just get a bit heavier, okay? And then that's that. Another one. So eject, push, and inject. Right, so I had a bit of a calamity. The bag split and went all over the last set of donuts. So there's obviously a few left. And yes, I am eating them because I don't want to waste them. And yes, they are delicious. So let's open one if we can. They're still a bit warm. I kind of like to wait until they're a bit cold, but just for the benefit of the camera and yourself, but hopefully see into one. And there you go. Okay, that's what you're looking for. Nice oozy centre. Oh, I was going to eat that, but I'll save that for somebody else. So that's it. Right, so thanks for joining me again. I hope that this step-by-step guide to stuffing your donuts with salted caramel. The salted caramel recipe again is on my website at www.thepastrychefcornwall.co.uk. And you can pick up the information on there. Again, with the donut recipe, I've updated the donut recipe to include the fresh yeast as well, just so you can have a play around with that if you can get any fresh yeast. But they do work a lot better. But they still work just as well with the instant yeast. It's just a better flavour and a better rise with the fresh. So again, lock down still. Keep yourself busy. Keep your brain active. And bake as much as you can.